take a deep breath. This has been challenging. There's some scary stuff going on, and solutions are not a whole lot easier. So I do want to talk a little bit about how to fill the gaps in your prepping plan or in your survival plan. Part of that is foraging. We're going to do Foraging 101. This topic can go on forever, but we're just going to get started and take a look at it as a concept. First thing I want to say is that all we need is found in creation. All of our foods, all of our supplies, all of our medicines, they exist already in nature. All pharmaceuticals have derived from natural resources, and they've extracted the pieces that they want, threw the rest away, which is why it doesn't generally work very well. But all of that stuff exists in nature, and all you have to do is know where to go and how to find it. So what is foraging? It's an act of searching, identifying, and collecting food and medicinal resources in the wild. Food and medicinal. Many you get both at the same time. I heard vitamin C mentioned. If you look at some of the plants that are on the list here, you get enormous levels of vitamin C, 5 times that of a lime or a lemon. Readily available. May include a wide variety of plants, mushrooms, herbs, and fruits growing around us as uncultivated. It's gained some popularity. It's kind of a fashionable, fun thing to do. But our ancestors had to do it. That's how they survived. Hunters and gatherers, that's how they ate. They found the food. Anybody watch the movies The Chosen? You know, there's a scene in there where Mary goes out and starts picking berries because they ran out of food. I mean, that's foraging. Why is it relevant today? Health benefits. Natural solutions are better than manufactured solutions for general care. I can't treat cancer with a weed, but I can do a lot to prevent from getting cancer with a weed. All the medicinal value in plants is combined with a whole ton of other stuff. A blueberry is high in all kinds of vitamins and bioflavonoids in the color. The color of a blueberry is part of the healing process. It's cost effective. Wild resources, if managed properly, are free. You just go get them. You got to put some effort into it, but it's pretty much the source is free. Why is it relevant? Independence. There's a lot of empowerment in being self-sufficient. It really is. It's hard work, but you really feel empowered when you begin to prepare and be ready. Say, you know, come what may, I'm ready. Bring it on. It's very empowering. Food scarcity, we know that that's coming. So when commercial food sources are in short supply, foraging can fill the gaps. You really can't count on foraging year-round to survive. That's a little bit more than challenging. I don't think anybody in here wants to eat a pine tree, but you can if you need to. That's how the early American Indians oftentimes prevented starvation from part of the tribe. But it can fill the gaps nicely. Northern Ohio has an abundance of all kinds of foods and medicines readily available. As Nancy said, I'll check out the parking lot to see what's out there, and there's a whole bunch of stuff out there. You just need to know what it is. And winter sucks around here. There's nothing much left of the winter, so you got to get it when you can. You're surrounded by amazing plants. Take the time to see them and understand them. How many people identify 5 plants coming in the driveway? You need to see them as separate beings and know what they are. If you drive down the road, if you're on the highway, look along the side of the highway, you'll see a ton of different colors of trees. They're all different. They all have a purpose. So you need to see them and learn them. There's 4 S's in all of my preparation speeches and all of my self-sufficiency speeches and in all my foraging speeches. There's 4 S's that you have to live by. First of all, spirit, and you address this. You've got to be right with God. You've got to have your head and your heart in the game to make it work. And that's your commitment. You've got to have some supplies. In prepping, you're buying food and foraging, and your supplies. come naturally, but you got to be able to gather them and collect them and find them. You've got to develop the skills. When you're prepping, you can buy all the cans of food that you want, but if you don't have a can opener, you're not going to be able to eat much of it. They beat it with a hammer or something. So you got to have skills to get through the spots that you're not supplied for, and you got to have a squad, which is your relationships with the people around you who are like-minded. Do not befriend people that are going to drag you down. It's nice to be a friend with somebody that you feel sorry for, but when it all falls apart, SHTF, you've heard the expression? When you get to SHTF, you don't want to drag. You want somebody that's going to help you. How to be a forager. Here's the key elements in how to be a forager. You have to be able to identify the plants carefully. You have to learn how to collect them. You have to learn how to use them, application. You have to figure out how to prepare them. There's a lot of different ways to prepare foraged foods. And you have to learn how to save it through the winter. There's a field near my property, almost next to my property, where they're building a house on it. And they keep trying to plow down the weeds, and they keep coming back up. And there's this beautiful field of wild mustard that I just drool over. They keep plowing it down. I just can't get over there in time. Plus, they probably shoot me as a invader. So identification. I'm going to go back through the list one at a time and talk briefly about them. So identifying plants, there's two ways of addressing plant identification. Number one, learn a plant you want to be friends with. A plant that's good for you has a lot of value. What's the most valuable, most beautiful, most plentiful plant in this part of Ohio? Dandelions. Dandelions. You can do a ton of stuff with dandelions. The whole thing is valuable. And I'm seeing a lot of new heads coming up. They shaved them down and they're coming back up again, so take advantage of, learn about the plant. That's an easy one. The other option is do all the plants, good luck with that, and then collect what you discover when you're out. So if you become increasingly more knowledgeable about what plants have value, take a walk in the park or in the field, and you'll find all kinds of stuff. You know, you're seeing valuable stuff along the road when you're driving. You may not know it yet. How about the white flowers along the side of the road? Queen Anne's lace.
Oh, no problem.
How about the little blue flowers along the side of the road? Chicory. What's chicory good for? You can make a substitute for coffee out of chicory. There's all kinds of stuff. So you can learn them and then collect them when you're out. So the two actually go together, but start with know what you're looking for. They blend together the more you use them. How do you learn plants are important? You do your research. You have to put work into this. Introduce yourself to a plant. Dandelions are a great way to start. Go pick the sucker. Makes a nice salad. You can make tea out of the flowers. You can make coffee out of the roots. And then find readily available resources. Right now, the internet is great. It is loaded with information on foraging. Tons and tons of information. And when the SHTF, there won't be an internet. Get yourself a couple of books. 2 good books. 1, a field guide, and 2, a resource, a reference book that tells you, if I've got a stuffy nose, what do I look for? Where can I find colt's foot? Because it'll clear up my stuffy nose. And how do I make my own cough drops out of colt's foot? Pretty easy to do. Yes?
Can you say those 2 books again?
What's that?
Can you name those 2 books again? One on...
Oh, one is a field guide.
Okay.
If you're a birder or a tree identifier or an insect person, you're familiar with Peterson. Peterson's got field guides to edible wild plants. And that's great. It's a little book. It'll tell you, look by season, look by color, look by leaves, look by flower. It'll tell you what you're looking for. You carry that with you. And the other is a reference book, which will tell you what is this plant good for, and what do I use for this condition. You can cross-reference those two. Those are generally pretty big and expensive. Your first field experience should probably be second-hand books. If there's second-hand books around here, half-price books.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
There's one in Golden Gate.
Check those out, because you may find those resources available there. Might as well save money while you're at it. It's a good start. And then associate with other like-minded people and organizations. Now, I'm not recommending this because I haven't been very good at keeping up with it. I got COVID in November, and I'm still trying to get rid of it. It's dragged me down, and I can't do much. But there's an organization called Fantastic Foragers. That was our first slide. I've got cards up here. Sometimes I send out emails. If you use Telegram, I've got a Telegram channel. I'll publish stuff on there. I've tried to get better at sending out email guides. It'll specialize on a plant that is relevant for either the situation. I did a whole series on white pine solution for COVID. And this time of the year there'll be a lot of freshly flowering things. So associate with other people. There are other foraging organizations out there, lots of them. Go on the internet and find them and get started. Make some friends. Collect hard copy books, because when it falls apart, the internet won't be there. So find hard copy books. And then the next thing is start your own mission of discovery. This is the best way to learn about a plant. Because if you get to know a plant personally, one-on-one, you'll remember that plant. And the note is, I can't see it well from here, always be sure of your identification. There can be nasty imposters out there. Queen Anne's lace is like a wild carrot. Pull up the root, it smells, tastes, it's like a carrot. Long, white, but not yellow, but it's a wild carrot. But growing near that could be poison hemlock, which is absolutely deadly just by touching it. So you've got to know the difference between the two. And I say this because I don't want anybody coming back to me after they're dead and saying, you misled us. So know your plants. I mean, they're not that hard to tell apart, but you need to know the details. That little drop of blood in the middle of a Queen Anne's lace, that's the key. That's the story. She was sewing lace and pricked her finger, and there's a little purple flower right in the middle of a Queen Anne's lace bloom. The poison hemlock doesn't have that. Queen Anne's lace has a fuzzy stem. Poison hemlock has a reddish mottled smooth stem. You don't want to eat poison hemlock. If you do collect poison hemlock, when it all falls apart because you've got nasty neighbors, then make sure you use gloves to do that. Did I say that out loud? So I'll bring, here's a picture of Queen Anne's lace. Here's that little purple flower right in the center of the drop of blood. So here's how you can tell them apart. Next thing is collection. How do you collect? Well, you can think about picking, plucking, reaching, digging, sawing, carving. These are all things that you may do when you're out collecting. You don't need a lot to get started, basically just a bag, or just carry your flower home and say, look what I found. Know how much material you'll be collecting and how you'll be getting it home. So you don't want to cut down a tree and say, now I got to get it home. Think about how much you're going to collect. Take a bag, get yourself a nice, durable, breathable grocery bag, a canvas bag or something like that, very natural looking. It's a great way to cart your plants around. They don't get all mushy. Or a backpack. Wheelbarrow is hard to get through the woods. And collection, there's techniques. Know where you're going, where you end up, and how to get home. That's important. GPS is very valuable when it's working. Maps and compasses learn how to navigate the land. It's easy to walk into a forest and see where you're going, but when you're walking into a forest, you have no idea what it looks like from this side. So once in a while, I'll turn around. What does it look like when I'm going back, I hope? Yes?
Something like that happened to me once, and pay attention to what time of day it is too, so you're not walking out in the dark.
Yep. Yep. I mean, there's such a thing as blazing a trail. You ever heard that expression? Let's take your little axe or knife and take a little piece of bark off the backside of the trees as you walk in, and look for the little chipped up bark on the way back out. Or take some colored tapes, like plastic tapes that they use for marking trees, and just tie those around the trees. You go and you can find your way out that way. In collection, respect nature. Don't over collect. Don't stomp on everything. Try the plant you're stepping on, maybe the next one you're trying to learn about, so don't kill it that way. Respect people's property. Don't go into somebody's yard without permission. And also make sure you don't take stuff from somebody's property that you're not permitted to take it from. So that's important to respect that. Observe carefully. Take notes. It's amazing how quickly you will gather very detailed information and how quickly you'll get it scrambled and forgotten. I've created a database on my telephone so I can identify the plants that I want to find out where they're located. I can go take pictures of them, make notes of them, and I have another application on my phone, and you'll see it later, or I can actually take a picture which gives me the exact longitude and latitude of that location so I can go back and find it on Google Maps. So, you know, you can use technology as long as it's available. Keep a record of your activities. It can be fun and rewarding. You actually create a journal. Oh, listen, I discovered a whole field of this and that. And nature changes. Because the place where I used to go to get all my colt's foot for cold remedies is now overgrown with little tiny trees. All the colt's foot's gone. So keeping notes can help you keep track of things. It's interesting, I have a disease called sarcoidosis, which is it's an autoimmune disorder which attacks it's eating my lungs. I've got only a third of my lungs that are left. The rest are all solidified. But the colt's foot helps me improve my breathing, and it's been used for centuries. Anybody watch the series Outlander? A few years ago, lady went back in time. She was a forager. I thought she was a witch because she knew a lot, but saved a lot of people's lives. But colt's foot's mentioned in there. Digital technology can be your friend. Don't rely on it because it can fail. Here's a picture of this application that I use. Here's the longitude and latitude. It tells me all kinds of which direction I'm pointing. So if you can't really see it here very well, but there's a little white flower, which is a blackberry bush on the edge of my woods. And I'm facing northeast when I do it, so I can go to that location and face northeast. Oh, there it is, and I can find that plant. And that's kind of, if you're into technology, that's a lot of fun to do. I checked out an old plant, and yeah, sure enough, I could find it exactly again. The software is called Spyglass software. I don't know what it costs. It's not very expensive, but it's really handy. Gear is a part that I have fun with gear. Actually, my wife and I have fun with the gear part because she gets the outfit and I get the tools. She said, you know, if I'm going to do something, Billy Crystal, I can tell by your outfit that you were a cowboy. If you wouldn't be a cowboy, you can get an outfit too. So get the outfit, be ready for weather and water from hats to footwear. So you may be out in a dry morning and a rainy afternoon. You may slide down a hill into a stream, you want boots on. You guys can talk about the right gear for being out in the midst of it. And then get the tools. Think about what you'll need and how far you'll have to carry it. So an axe is handy, but it's heavy. Okay? So get yourself some equipment. It can be very simple. It can be with you all the time. You know? I've got my pocket knife. This is my salvation. I cut stuff off all the time. I go attack willow trees whenever I find them. Why? Anybody know the answer to that? Why would I attack a willow tree? The scientific name for willow, the willow family, is salix, which is sort of like salicylic acid, which is aspirin. And I forgot to bring it. I was going to run an experiment. I got little black jars of an ointment that I made. It's from willow bark, olive oil, beeswax, a little bit of peppermint to smell good, and some vitamin E oil to make it last a long time. And if you have arthritis, you rub it on your joints and they'll stop hurting. And that's right there. Just go next door and chop off a willow branch. So get the tools and be ready for it. Here's a neat tool. This is from a kind of a hippie website. It's all hippie women, and there's no offense with ladies, but hippie women running this website about herbalism and natural foods and so on. I've got one of those. I got it at Layman's Hardware. Who's ever heard of Layman's Hardware? Good. If you haven't been there in a while, take a road trip and just plan to spend the afternoon walking through there. You don't have to buy anything, you will, but there's an amazing assortment of solutions. You talk about how do you do your laundry? Well, they got the thing that looks like a toilet plunger that you put in the bucket, and you do this and agitates your clothes and washes them in a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket of water. So Layman's Hardware, it's in Kindred, Ohio. You can get on their an email mailing list, and they'll send you stuff all the time. It's really cool, the things that they have. And I just did a bunch of gardening with this. It's sharp at the tip. It's got a knife edge here, a serrated edge over here. It's got a hook knife here, and it's made out of iron, so it's really stable. So you can do everything with this, and it's easy to carry. The other last thing is be safe. Solitary foraging can be almost a spiritual experience. Walk into the woods and it's absolutely quiet. You hear the animals, see the squirrels running, which are good eating, by the way, for when it falls apart. And it's a wonderful, I mean, it really feels good. You know, it's been saying now you walk into the woods for a couple of hours, every couple of weeks or so, and you are actually healing yourself. There's a rhythm that exists in nature. So it can be a spiritual experience, but it also can be dangerous because you could trip and fall and break something. You can get attacked by a woodpecker. No, they don't. I live in Hinckley, so you can get attacked by a buzzard. But there are risks associated with it, so it's always good to go with a friend. And be aware of what's going on around you. If you're going to go into the deep woods, take a whistle with you. Because you can scare things away with a whistle or tell people where you are, so be safe. Most wild plants have multiple uses for the different parts of the plant. There's the edible parts, there's nutritious, bulk can fill you up. You can store some of them taste pretty good, some of them taste pretty bad, but they're nutritious. So there's medicinal purposes, which is for healing, prevention, and first aid. You can use a tampon to plug a bullet wound, but you can use yarrow plants. Anybody have yarrow plants in the garden? Yeah. Yarrow is an amazing blood stopper. If you're bleeding, crunch up some of the leaves and put it on there, it'll stop the blood almost instantly. And then if you have lamb's ears, which are those little fuzzy plants you see, they're kind of a light green, real fuzzy. They make great Band-Aids. Break off the leaf, put it over that, and hold it on that. It's a great Band-Aid. It's also great toilet paper, but that's another. Yeah. So there's all kinds of things you could do, and then you can know what you can use: the roots, the stems, the leaves, the flowers, the seeds, the bark, all of it. There's a lot of edible things. You can eat every part of a pine tree. tastes like turpentine. But it is possible. So, I mean, you can't eat the inner part of the bark. There's a lot of sumac trees around this part of the state. Anybody know what a sumac looks like? Who's afraid of a sumac? Because of poison sumac. The sumacs with red flowers are not poisonous. The sumacs with white flowers can be poisonous. If you take the red flower head off of a sumac, put it in a glass of water, it gets kind of a lemony taste to it. It's one of the most popular Mediterranean herbs or spices used to make baba ganoush or tahini or any of the Mediterranean foods. I just made a batch of hummus and throw some sumac in there. It's easy to find, it's easy to identify, and tasty. How do you prepare your wild foods? Well, you can eat it raw, you can cook it. Dandelions are better when you cook it. It takes some of the bite out of the bitterness out of the leaves. You can make salves and ointments to apply to your skin. You can brew teas with it. You can do decoctions, which are longer term boiling. You boil it for a couple hours. You can do that with sticks and twigs. Or you can make my favorite, the infusions, which you saturate it in alcohol for a while. Alcohol is not only a great barter, but making your own alcohol, makes you a valuable person when it all comes to the end. Give me your alcohol. Okay, but you're going to run out, and I know how to make more. Plus, you can purify your water that way. So, learn how to make a still. You'd be amazed at what I have in my basement. Preservation of your foods, you can dry it, you can can it, you can freeze it. Some of them are pretty good, stored on their own. Anybody ever eat a Jerusalem artichoke? A little thing that's sort of like a crispy potato. Where does that come from? It's the root of a wild sunflower. So plant wild sunflower seeds along the edge of your garden. You got beautiful sunflowers, and then you've got Jerusalem artichokes as the tubers at the bottom. And those last a long time. You talk about making your own little bucket with the sawdust and all the rest of that stuff. You can dig a hole in the yard and fill a bottom with straw and do the same thing, pile straw on top of it. We store a lot of food for a long time underground. How do you get started in foraging? Well, you start with easy stuff. You find common plants that are readily available, easy to identify, nutritious. Tasty? Maybe, maybe not. You know, you're not going to get a head of iceberg lettuce under a dandelion, but, you know, you can learn to adapt. Plus, the nutrition value is astronomical compared to commercial foods. I recommend you start with making a yard salad. Okay? Be confident in your identification. First of all, know what you're looking for. Collect it, gather it from uncontaminated areas. You'll see a lot of stuff along the side of the road. I do not recommend those because they do absorb a lot of fumes from cars. Pardon the coughing, that's part of the sarcoidosis. And clean it and prepare it, get rid of the junk. Obviously, one of the problems with dandelions is animals walk over the top of them and may leave something, a present for you along the way, so get rid of that gunk. And enjoy it. Learn to enjoy it. Here's a few plants for your yard salad. A dandelion. It's entirely edible from its roots to the leaf. Boiling removes some of the bitterness. Plus, you can use the flowers as a garnish when making a salad. You can make wine. I keep coming back to alcohol. Water.
Sure.
Maybe. Purslane. Anybody know purslane? Everybody hate purslane? Don't kill it. Eat it. It's amazing in a salad. It has a lemony, semi-tart taste. It's really very good. And it is phenomenally high in vitamin C. Very high in vitamin C. So, you know, don't spray it or stomp on it. Pick it out, believe me, there'll be more. Break off the little leaves. It's almost like a little cactus leaf. It's puffy. It's fairly thick. Break them off, wash them off, throw them in your salad. You'll be surprised at how good they are. Lamb's quarters. This is really easy to identify because of this kind of a grayish dust in the young leaves. It's rich in vitamin A, C, calcium, iron, and protein. And it tastes sort of like spinach. Red clover. Another pesky buddy, isn't it? You know, it's delicious. You can eat it. You can also do it for medicinal purposes for conditions such as high cholesterol and brittle bones. My grandson's favorite way of eating these is I break the heads off, dip them in a little light batter, and fry them in a deep fryer, and we make little red clover donuts. Very tasty. Why do you think the bees hang around the red clover? It's full of sugar. That's why it's so tasty. Chickweed. That's another pest. Well, pesky critter in your yard all the time. It's amazing. You'll find if you make salves or ointments or combinations of things using different kind of plants, you'll often find chickweed is a base for a lot of those. Chickweed goes with everything, that's why it's everywhere. Plus you can make tea out of it. It's supposed to help your diet. If you want to lose weight, make chickweed tea. Field, stream, and gardens. And here's some easily identifiable plants you can find in the field, at the edge of woodlands, near streams and ponds, or in your garden. Most of these you'll recognize. Cattails. You all know cattail. You know that thing, that part of it that looks like a corn dog? Yeah, you can eat it like a corn dog. You take off the crunchy outer part of the stem, and the inside is almost like a very soft, sweet celery. The roots are also edible, but you got to get down in the muck and the mire to get to them. Cattails were staple food for the Native Americans. Chicory. You'll find that a lot along roadsides, but don't pick that. It's easy to identify because of these bright blue flowers. The stems are kind of tough, almost woody. Roots give a pleasant taste after you boil them. What's interesting to note is the bluer the flower, the more aluminum it has in the soil. So the bluest of the blue are not the ones you want. You want the ones that are kind of a pale blue. All of this is in nature. Cone flowers. Who's got cone flowers in their garden? It's echinacea. What's echinacea for? It's a great treatment for colds. Didn't even know that. Don't plant it, look at it, eat it, boil it, make tea. Best yet, an infusion, and you don't care to. Here's the lamb's ears, these fuzzy little things that can serve as natural band-aids or toilet paper. Good for colds, gum and throat infections and asthma. Squash leaves and put it on bee stings and insect bites, like you do with the plantain. Yarrow, that's a great garden plant, pretty. This can come in different colors. It actually helps stop bleeding very quickly, very effective. I really snagged myself pretty bad in the garden one day, grabbed a hunk of this, put it on. It's just like amazing. Just wrap it in something and just stops the bleeding right away. Plus it aids in recovery. Again, make sure about the flower heads. Don't grab anything with a white flower head and think that it's okay. That yarrow has these very fluffy leaves that look sort of like carrots. White willow contains compounds similar to aspirin. You can make oil to make analgesic ointments, or you can make tea for headaches or generalized aches and pains. This is not so much for infusion purposes, but if you're going to make tea out of your willow bark, then you can certainly drink while you're doing it, so the infusion still relates here. I'm really not a drunk. But an infusion is a great way to store stuff long term. The eastern white pine is easily distinguished by the fact that there are 5 needles in each group. So you'll find that there's a little brown bundle at the bottom, and there's 5 needles coming out because there's 5 letters in the word white. White pine is a great, white pine tea is very good for clearing your system of viruses. Coltsfoot looks like that. Looks like a colt's foot. It has a little flower that looks sort of like a dandelion, but this is a weird plant because the flower comes out before the leaves do. So if you see the little white flowers or the little yellow flowers that are sort of like a dandelion but not so big and full, keep an eye on that spot because coltsfoot may show up later, and you can do all kinds of things with coltsfoot. You can make tea, you could make ointments, you can dry it and smoke it. Actually, inhaling some of the smoke can actually improve your breathing. Not a lot. Doesn't get you buzzy, but it will help you breathe better. So, there is a website for fantastic forages. You can scan this code with your phone if you want to get to the website. Still building that a little bit, needs more work. If you want, I've got a whole box of cards up here. If you want to grab a card, it has 2 links on the back, one to the website and one to the Telegram channel, so you can get connected that way. I'll also, there's their if you want to write it down, there's a Telegram channel, but it's on the card. And the email is FF for Fantastic Foragers at westlake912.com. Westlake912 is my version, a West Side version of this organization. We've been doing this for since 2010. We've been around beating on politicians and stuff since then. So, any questions? Yes.
Mushrooms.
Yes.
Mushrooms can be poisonous. How do you tell?
Find a friend. I am fascinated by the value of mushrooms because they have, some of them are just amazing healers, but they are a little risky, and you've got to start with somebody to go show you what's good or not, because there's not a lot of variety. My yard gets full of them in the spring. These mustard yellow colored things, they're just everywhere, and I just kick them down because I don't know what they do. So yeah, you could read about them, but it's hard. It's best to know somebody that knows some of them. Pick the ones that you know you can eat. A morel mushroom is unmistakable and it's very tasty. So you can start with the morels.
That's a very short season.
Very short season and not everywhere, but this part, the eastern side of Cleveland, has got some good forests for morels.
And Hinckley does also. I used to live in Hinckley, so we used to mark the trees for the pig ear mushrooms.
Yes.
And a good mushroom book is just about this big, and it'll tell you what to avoid and what to pick.
Yep.
But bottom line is, we used to mark the trees because they come back every year.
Yes. Yeah. There's some kind of a fungus that grows on a black birch tree that's a big, knotty, black, nasty looking thing.
It looks awful, but that's one of the best mushrooms to eat.
Yes. Yeah. Very, very high in healing qualities. But I'm still chicken.